We're having technical, they're doing their technical part. That's why we're doing it.
Do you see the website? Do you see it? And then try.
Okay, I'd like to call to order Lower Saucon Township Council meeting. Today's date is January 11th, 2024, and the time is 6:38 p.m. We apologize for the delay. Can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. DeLeon,
Here.
Ms. Southhouse-Berdere,
Here.
Ms. Ray,
Here.
Mr. Banonis. Here. Mr. Carocci.
Okay, so we have a quorum. Can we all stand, pledge allegiance, please?
Flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can everybody hear? If you can't, please raise your hand. You can't? Can you hear me better tonight? Okay, I'd like to announce that council met an executive session prior to the meeting and to discuss several items. One, the property acquisition, one right to know case, and a library lawsuit. So Mark, would you like to take over for that?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. So, the property acquisition matter relates to two properties that are going up for auction. This board, or council, was previously authorized to put a bid in on those properties. What was discussed tonight was getting appraisals of those properties so that to comply with the Saucon Township code regarding potential purchase of properties. The two litigations relate to the library, and we had discussions regarding both the Commonwealth Court Appeal as well as the right to know proceeding that's in the public comment.
Any action needed?
On the appraisal, it would be authorizing the manager to obtain an appraisal for the two properties that are going for.
Okay, I'll make a motion as stated by the solicitor. Is there a second?
Second.
And that was Jason. And can we have a roll call, please?
How do you vote, Ms. Alcantara?
Yes.
Ms. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Banonis?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, for, anything else for the solicitor?
No.
Okay, next we'll have public comment procedure. Last meeting, for those of you that were here, we passed a new resolution 31-2024, which now allows 5 minutes of comment, and we are opening up each agenda item for your comment. So as the meeting goes on, we'll talk, the Township Council will talk first, and then we'll discuss things, and then we'll open it up to public comment prior to our vote. So, okay, so moving on then, we have the 2024 budget discussion, and I'd like to read that during the month of January, next following any municipal election, the council may amend the budget and the levy and tax rate to conform with its amended budget. After presentation of the proposed amended budget, the manager shall see that a notice to the effect that it is available for public inspection at the Township Municipal Building be published once in a newspaper of general circulation. Any amended budget must be adopted by the council or on or before the 15th day of February. No such proposed amended budget shall be revised upward in the excess of 10% in the aggregate thereof, or as to an individual item in excess of 25% of the amount of each individual item in the proposed amended budget. The manager shall file a copy thereof with the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development within 15 days after the adoption of the amended budget as provided by the second-class code. So since we have newly elected officials, we are amending or opening up the budget for discussion and possible amendment. So with that, we have our controller, Lynn Hill, here, and she's going to give us a presentation. So do you want to start, please?
Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you, Stacy.
Is the mic on or up?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? All right. Yeah, Kathy Gorman and I put together this overview, basically looking at the cash balances that are projected as of the end of 2024.
Excuse me, when was this put together? Because I didn't see this included in the council packet.
It
It was finished around 5:30 tonight. So,
there are copies there, aren't there?
They all have copies.
You have a copy?
I do, but this is the
Great.
first time I'm seeing this.
Okay. Well, it should be pretty straightforward. It's based on the numbers from the 2024 budget. There's a few updates because, the budget was prepared ahead of the year end, so there were some transactions in December that changed some of the projected ending balances for 2023. So these numbers reflect those small changes. But other than that, they're basically the same numbers that we saw at budget time. The first page is a summary of the operating budget, the operating fund balance, and the operating savings accounts. So coming into the new year, we're at roughly 6.5 million with budgeted revenue of a little under 8.9 million, expenses of approximately 8.7 million, and then transferred to capital, park, and historic funds, 390,000. If you notice, we have a small excess of expenses over revenue, 57,249. So that's going to result in support from the fund balance to balance the budget. So our combined...
Excuse me 1 second. You're showing revenue of $8.9 million. You're showing expenses of $8.7 million, which would mean that revenue exceeds expenses by $200,000, but you're telling us that the combined projected ending balance is going to be less than it was year over year?
Yes, that's because of the 390,000 that's being transferred to the capital and park and historic capital funds.
So the money's there, it's not being spent, it's just being transferred into a separate account. So we're actually ahead by $2 million.
No, these are the same numbers that we
You're
ran
talking
over
about
with the budget.
transferring to capital, park, and historic. That's simply a balanced transfer, right? It's money that's there that's being transferred.
That's going to be spent. Yes.
Is it?
Next slide, please. The operational reserve is a separate fund. This is a fund that's been referred to as a rainy day fund, or a fund to help balance the budget if we have a shortfall of revenue or something of that nature. Included in that, so we have the projected ending balance of 6.3 million. We have included an environmental reserve, 316,270. That's money that's set aside for consultants for when the landfill closes. Is that accurate, Kathy?
That's correct. That was based on Hanover Engineering's estimate as to how much would be needed for post-closure expenses.
Right, and it's something we might want to look at in the future if our costs increase, you know, with inflation and so on. The operational reserve is projected to earn interest of 160,000, and we have planned a transfer of $1 million to the capital fund for the Cherrywood paving project.
When that bid came out, it wasn't $1 million for Cherrywood. What was the amount of the bid, Kathy?
It was, I believe, 370,000 or
$630,000 of that capital fund that's being allocated for paving that is not actually going to be used for that paving project, correct?
Correct.
670,000.
Jason, can you keep your questions to her end of her
Well, I want to ask
presentation?
them while I'm...
No, at the end, you can ask your questions.
Okay.
Proceed, please, Lynn.
Thank you. So our projected ending balance in the operational reserve is going to be a little under 5.8 million. And I do realize that things obviously could change during the year with overruns or cost savings in the various projects we have planned in all the capital funds. The American Rescue Plan Act Fund, ARPA, going into the new year, we have 815,000 and change, and we'll be using 500,000 in park capital to go toward the Easton Road Ball Field project. So we expect the ending balance to be 315,611 remaining in the American Rescue Plan funds. Thank you. Next, we have the Open Space Fund, 11,564,000 ending balance of 2023. Interest to be earned during the year, we projected 200,000, And the prior year tax revenue, because there's a little bit of a lag sometimes with people paying property taxes and with the old tax rate that was discontinued, but there's still funds coming into this from the 0.25 mils that had been paid by the residents toward this fund over the years. It was suggested that we would spend $1,046,000 to purchase open space land, to put land into open space that our residents have, and this would include all purchase costs, little typo there. 500,000 is coming out of this fund to go toward the development of the Easton Road ball field. And 75,000 is earmarked for open space maintenance on various parcels that we have in the township for mowing and so forth. So our projected ending balance will be a little over 10 million in the open space fund at the end of this year. And here we have the fire fund. This is one that changed a little bit because of the payment that we did not.
The beginning fund balance in the budget was assumed, the beginning fund balance in the budget was assumed at $1 million or a little over $1 million. It should have been $1.3 million, which is correct. It's where we're at right now.
So our fire tax revenue is projected at $332,000. Interest income on the fire fund, $50,000. And then the budget showed $705,000 earmarked for purchase of equipment, fire truck, and so forth. Training simulator radios. So projected ending balance of $1,014,000. State liquid fuel fund, going into the year, we have $1.5 million. And then we have some revenue from state aid, interest on the $1.5 million, the sale of some used equipment and so forth. So we've got $542,880 in income coming into that fund. We're expecting $250,000 in payments toward the paver and backhoe from this fund, and then $649,000 anticipated other state aid approved expenses for highways and roads and so forth. Projected ending balance of $1.1 million and change. It's okay. Next we have park capital. We have $439,000 coming into the year, and money in grants and state funding, $867,000. And then we have a few transfers coming in from other funds, from the general fund, from the ARPA, and from the open space fund, as was outlined on the previous slides. Town Hall park improvements, $364,000. Polk Valley Trail, $100,000. Site changes on projects in process. This would be change orders that we have money reserved for in case of things that come up, such as if the engineer suggests changes or things of that nature. And then we're expecting, with the completion of this project, the remaining amount that would be spent during 2024 would be the $2.9 million and change. In order for all of this to balance out, we think there may be another $168,210 that would be needed to be transferred in to complete all these projects if they all come out to fruition during the year. And here we have the capital fund, $4.6 million and change. Grants and state funding, $388,000. And we have a couple of transfers, general fund, $350,000, transferring from the reserve, $1 million. Purchase of police vehicles, $155,000, paver and backhoe, which part of that was coming out of the highway fund and the rest of it's coming out of capital, $569,000. MS4 detention basins and the Reading Road culvert, $590,000. The paving project for Cherrywood, which, as Jason said, is probably going to come in well under that. And then we have Cidersville Hall improvements for $180,000. And setting aside the restricted funds, our projected ending balance in capital would be $2.3 million and change. Historic capital, small fund, $50,000 and change going into the year. A grant of $50,000, which I think is toward the windows for the, is that correct?
Correct.
The $50,000 grant goes toward the Heller Homestead windows. And then a little help from the general fund, $20,000, will leave us with an ending balance of $25,000 and change. So here's just a recap of all the funds combined. All the funds that I've just mentioned at the beginning of the year, total $33 million and change. And then we've got revenue, all of the revenue that it actually does include the general fund operating revenue. We made a last minute change to that. So the $11,525,658 is all the revenue coming into the township from all the sources. Operating revenue, state funding, everything. The total expenses between the general fund, the capital, and all the special funds, the total is a little over $17 million, which is really about 2 years' worth of operating expenses. So that's quite a sizable number there. And the sum total of the funds projected at the end of the year, in accordance with the budget, would be $27 million and change. And that's really all I have.
Okay, thank you. Does council have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
So again, the numbers that you have here are misleading in that budgeted revenue exceeds budgeted expenses by $200,000. The amount of $1 million budgeted for the Cherrywood paving project is $1 million, when the reality of that is it was already bid and approved for $330,000.
I believe.
380, around 380.
Okay, $380,000. So that number is off by, I believe, $620,000 of that. So the reality of this is that the math that you're showing us here is off by at least $820,000, because you're not accurately accounting for those things that I talked about. And then you talked about the sum of all funds. That's a meaningful number, but Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, those funds are not lumped together. Those funds have very specific purposes. For example, the open space fund is money that was collected through the open space tax that can only be used for open space related items. It's over $10 million. And then there's also the fire services fund, which is a restricted fund that can be used only for matters related to our fine fire services, equipment, training, bid, grant writing, and things like that. Am I correct?
Correct.
What other restricted funds do we have besides those?
State liquid fuel funding, which is directly related to anything that's public works.
Can't hear you,
Right.
Kathy.
So the state liquid funds fund is related to anything doing with public works, and in there there's an allocation for the paver and the backhoe that's going to be funded from the state liquid fuel fund. When's the last time we bought a paver, Kathy?
That paver has got to be 19,
It's 20 years old.
it's definitely 20 years old.
All right, so that seems to be money well spent, because we're investing in a paver that's going to be a piece of equipment that public works will use for a period of 20 years, which will pave our roads and save on the cost of having to hire outside contractors to do that work. How about the backhoe? What's the lifespan of the backhoe?
All of our public works vehicles are inventoried to have a 15-year replacement
All right, so we'll have that back over 15 years, so that seems to be a wise investment. There's money there to pay for that. It's not as if that state liquids fuel fund money that's going to be used for those two pieces of equipment is a one-off. This is something that's going to be used by the Township Public Works for a number of years. Right? All right, well, those are my thoughts on what's being proposed here.
Right, well, these numbers are from the budget. I wasn't, going to put my own spin on it and reduce numbers and so on. This really was derived from the budget that was passed December 6th by the council majority at that time. And I'm not meaning to imply that we have the use of this money for anything we want. Obviously, there are restricted funds, and that's why I was showing them separately in the previous slides, if you were watching. And there's a decrease in cash of approximately $6 million, and it may turn out better than that. I certainly hope so, but I just wanted to make people aware of what the big picture was, what the full picture of our township finances are. Now, if you go back to the second slide, with the operation, there's the operational reserve. That's money we can spend on operational matters. And then the previous slide from that is, the operating budget. So those are the monies that are not restricted. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yes. So
At this time, yes.
yeah, so just to clarify that for everyone.
So let's look at that number. If we look at the projected ending balance, 12/31/24, $5,776,693. If you add to that the $620,000 that's not being used for the Cherrywood paving project, that number comes out to be $6,396,693, which is almost $100,000 more than the projected ending balance from 2023. Would that be correct?
I don't think we knew about that number back when
I'm
the
just
budget
asking,
was
is that
passed.
correct? I mean, we're not talking hypotheticals now, we're talking about the actual budget, right? And we know that number has now been finalized because we bid that number, and we know what it is, and we approved it.
That's
So
true.
what was being allocated for that is greater than what was needed. And as a result of that, and as a result of getting a favorable bid, we're actually going to have an ending balance which is almost $100,000 greater than it was in 2023. Is that a fair statement?
I don't know, I'm not really
Well,
following
can
what
we
you're
agree that
saying,
if you're-
Jensen, but the
if we can agree that-
$600,000 positive variance that you're expecting because of the Cherrywood paving project may be offset by other variances for things that
Of course,
maybe were
that's why
not
there's a
budgeted.
budget. That's why we have a budget.
It's a
but-
budget,
Right,
this
but
is
if we're
not,
talking about, we can only talk about what's
Okay,
being
stop
presented here.
interrupting, Jason, let
I'm
her
not-
finish,
I'm not
please.
interrupting.
No, yes, you did.
I don't think I am.
I
Go ahead.
think you are, we can play it back if you want.
this is just based on the budget. It's not, meant to, I'm not editorializing or anything like that. It's not
Normally,
really
I'm just talking about
something
hard
to
numbers.
debate the veracity of. It's just, I'm just
I
showing
think
the
it was a
numbers.
good recap of the budget, because when you look at the whole big giant packet that is out there as part of our packet, it is very confusing
Yes,
for people that aren't an accountant to look at. So this does give a nice summary, splits it out into the different funds. I think, people have some understanding that certain money can only be spent certain ways, and this is a good way to look at it.
yes.
These numbers weren't made up, they are based on the real budget, and part of the budget that we're looking at, it did include pulling about $1.75 million out of reserves, I think, if I remember.
Right, and, this is an illustration of what was authorized last year.
Right.
And what in this year we've inherited from this budget and what people were willing to spend last year. So, hopefully the year will turn out better than what this shows. I certainly will do my part in helping to facilitate a better financial outcome in this township. So
How are you going to do that? What's your plan for that?
delving into the expenses and seeing where we can realize cost efficiencies.
Kathy, you do that already, right?
Madam President, can I be
The
recognized?
manager and myself and all of our directors review the budget as to what's needed for the year.
Great.
And it's always helpful to have a fresh eye to look at things in a different light.
And I also would like to say, before I recognize Victoria, that her duties are spelled out very explicitly in the administrative code, and I'm very happy that you worked in concert with Kathy preparing this report and the manager. So I think we're off to a good start, and there's a lot more duties in your job description, and maybe you should familiarize yourself with the administrative code. Victoria?
You talking to me?
Thank
I don't know,
you.
you seem to not know her role, so I'm just saying that
I
the
didn't say,
duties.
I never
Okay.
said I never understood the law. You did. But I appreciate you putting those words in my mouth.
Victoria?
Thank you. I appreciate this. I have not seen it until now, and for somebody that doesn't have a background in finance, this is very helpful. I can say that I was concerned about some of our expenditures that happened, or expenditures that were approved in 2023 that would be realized in 2024. And looking at the end of the day, the last page speaks to me to see that we are reducing our funds significantly, and the revenue is significantly less than what we've budgeted when we take into consideration some of these projects. Some of them are not projects that we would have every year, but certainly I don't think that it would be wise for us to continue on in this spending. Something else that strikes me is that the budget that was prepared in September and October, I think, and I believe that our former administration was very proud, and rightfully so, that they wanted to have the budget open and transparent for everybody before there was any election, because they didn't want somebody after the election to come out and do something that without the taxpayers understanding what happens. And I think that what we saw was that this budget was proposed by the former administration. All of the expenditures were proposed by them. And at that time, they didn't touch the millage rates for either the general purpose or for the fire tax. And they did propose any reduction in those things, because I think they were wise to see that we were spending a lot of money and we needed to be careful. So I thank you, Lynn, for putting this together for me and for everybody else to see. And I do appreciate that we have a controller position and that we can see these things at council.
And many of these,
Recognized?
Sure.
So just a couple things. American Relief Fund money was free money from the federal government as a result of COVID. And it had certain restrictions that were placed upon it, and then those restrictions were removed that could be used for a number of categories. There's a deadline to use that money up, but when's the deadline for that, Kathy? End of 2024?
I think they extended it. I think it has to be earmarked to a specific project by the end of 2024.
So if we look at the summary that Ms. Hill put together for us, she's factoring in this reduction to include a reduction in American Relief Fund money, which we received for free, and which we're required to spend by a certain deadline. And then she also lumps into this overall $6 million supposed decrease, a decrease in the open space fund of $1.5 million. And it says all purchases to be determined, $1.46 million. I've been on this council for 4 years now. So you've been on for almost 40. Other than 30, we can agree to 36 is almost 40.
No.
But all right, maybe we won't. We'll agree to 36 is 36. So the only time that I can recall that there was $1 million expenditure, and this again wasn't while I was on council, for an open space fund purchase was the Polk Valley Park was one. and Woodland Hills was the other. So I'm not aware of any plans to construct or build or purchase some sort of public recreational space that is comparable to Woodland Hills or to Polk Valley Park.
That's what was
So
in the
that's-
budget though.
So that's a misnomer, that we're gonna be spending that much money. Then you look at the fire fund, there's a decrease in the fire fund of $350,000, which is attributable to the acquisition of fire apparatus and a payment for that. Then you have the decrease of $400,000 in the liquid fuels funds, which is related to the paver and the backhoe, which are one-time capital purchases that are gonna last us 15 to 20 years. And
And nobody
then
said
when you
they
get-
weren't, they're just facts in the budget, she's just showing the numbers.
Yeah, I know, but I'm
These are
showing,
the
I'm
numbers
showing.
that they proposed. The numbers that
Madam
you
President,
proposed.
may I speak without being interrupted? You're council, you are, you're not being interrupted.
Okay, everybody, let's have one person speak at a time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, then you look at this last page, and it double counts these numbers. It doesn't take into account the reality of this. So you're suggesting that there's a almost a $6 million hole in the budget, which is a complete farce. It's a complete farce that's suggested so that you can concoct some sort of tax increase, which is absurd. When you look at the amount of money that is here, and you look at how the monies are being allocated, and the reality of these funds, it's just wrong, and it's misleading to the public. And I can't believe that you can sit here with a straight face and suggest to the public that somehow these numbers are justifiable, because they are not.
Now, my understanding is they're taken right out of the budget.
They are taken right out of the budget. And this budget was approved last year by the council majority at the time. I'm not doing anything but taking the numbers that are in the approved budget and putting them into an expanded statement of cash balances, much like what you would see in the audit report. And if you look at the audit reports, there's a page in there that shows the net assets of the township, and these will tie to those numbers for the most part. You know, I mean, auditors always have little changes here and there, but not materially different from what the auditors will come up with. So I suggest you read those when they're out. I mean, 2023 should be out in what, April or so?
Typically, our auditors are finished with their financial statements in June.
June, okay. So,
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
and the open space purchases, I mean, I'm not editorializing, I'm not, you know, passing judgment on any of these. I'm just laying the facts out.
Right, for the budget.
Yes,
Right, I
just
appreciate
showing
your
what's here. Now, there are things here that are probably unpopular and, you know, might not be necessary. I'm not going to name them, but I understand that those contracts have already been executed, and we probably can't do anything to avoid those particular expenditures. And I'm not talking about necessary fire equipment and so forth. So
Okay.
I just really wanted to show the facts and as they are, and I think everybody here understands that, or most of us do.
Okay. I'm going to ask Victoria and Laura for another comment. Any other questions?
No, I just wanted to ask, Ms. Gorman, you have seen this packet, or you worked with Lynn or seen
did.
what this is? And do you find that any of this information is editorializing?
No, this did come from the budget, and like we had discussed at budget deliberations, that we do put in for high-end expense, for the higher end of probable expenses or possible expenses, so we don't have to come back and ask for councils to amend a budget if a property acquisition comes into play or the fire department needs some additional equipment. But the funding is there in the budget line item. And that's one of also the reasons why we don't utilize fund balance in our budget process.
And thanks for verifying that information.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, Laura?
No, I think I'm good. Like I said, I think this is a good way to summarize it for the general public and anybody who's not an accountant. These are the numbers. I wondered about that open space number myself when I was sitting out there. It's like, why would we put that much there? I had no idea what the plan was, or but that wasn't our doing, and that is the real number from the budget.
Okay, so everybody went at least twice, so, okay. Lynn, thank you.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Again, Kathy, thanks for working in concert with the controller, and appreciate it. Look forward to working with her. Right, good.
Likewise.
Okay, next I'm going to call the fire company. I think they want to make a presentation.
Priscilla, you can allow the public to speak on that agenda item related to the
We're
budget.
not getting there yet. We're not there yet. We're still on the budget. Hi.
Here we go.
I know we have new contraptions here.
Hold it, button on top, hold it. Oh, you're a professional.
Yeah, I haven't done it in many years. Been a long time.
Okay, do we have? Right.
All right, so
Please.
just want to
Your
introduce
names for the
myself.
record, please.
What's that?
Your names for the record.
Yep. My name is Scott Carocci. I am the president of Lower Saucon Fire Rescue.
Ty Johnson, Fire Chief of Lower Saucon Fire Rescue.
So we just put together a little company overview. A lot of you guys probably already know this information, but we figured we just put it out there for the public, just so the public knows what's going on. So we can just click to the next slide. So Lower Saucon Fire Rescue is the only fire department or company in Lower Saucon Township. We are the merged company existing from Seawico, Lightsville, Steel City, and Southeastern. That process has fully been completed. We operate 4 fire stations and about 12 pieces of fire apparatus. And we also have 3 social halls, actually 4 social halls, and a social club. And that's all that information that's on that slide. And now it's going to be the chief.
This slide here is just showing a breakdown of the incidents and the type of responses that we do in any given day and throughout the year. This is the year in review for 2023. Just have any questions, just let me know. I'm not going to read through everything. It's all there, pretty self-explanatory.
Priscilla, you want questions at the end after the
Yes,
presentation?
please.
This is showing our increase in calls since we did our operational merge in 2016. As you can see, it's been a steady increase every year to the call volume. We don't anticipate any change in that as far as going backwards. I think it's every year is going to be more and more, unfortunately. This slide's just showing you our monthly call volume. There's really no rhyme or reason for calls. Storms dictate, if our call volume is more, with the exception of the other night. We were really surprised. We only had 1 fire call. Usually a storm like that, we end up with 10 to 20. But we lucked out, which is all right with us. This slide is just showing you the call volume in each individual district. We don't have a slide of the districts up here, but basically the Seawico zone, the Southeastern zone, the Lightsville zone, and Steel City zone, which is, the different zones are different square miles. Off the top of my head, I don't know them all as far as what the square mileage is. I can tell you that the Southeastern zone is the biggest zone at 10 square miles. But we can provide that map at a later time, and it's been presented before. This slide is showing our mutual aid responses to different fire departments. And each one of these mutual aid responses, we also get reciprocated when we have a large-scale incident in the township. This slide is just showing a comparison of other fire departments in the Lehigh Valley. As you can see, we're right up there as the second busiest in the county. This slide is just representing the call volume our members run. As you can see, Kyle Myrtle, who's one of our fire captains, he's tops the list for the most responses, and then the rest is self-explanatory of personnel and how many calls they make. Yeah, I'll hand you back to the president.
So this is our profit and loss budget category for us. Fire income is at the top. You're seeing we achieved 83% of our suspected income that we were planning to get for the year. And then other revenue, and then, our expenses are down below, right there. See where bereavement is? It actually starts right there. So, our bereavement expenses are there, and then all of our other fire company expenses are down here. Gives you an idea. Maintenance on the fire trucks is always a good one. You can see 1611, which is an engine out of Liceville, is $9,000. 1612, which is the township engine, was $19,000. 1614 was $21,000. 21 was 46,000 or 4,600. Sorry, not thousand. And 6131 was 10,000. I'm sorry, 16. I should have put my glasses on. But anyway, that gives you an idea of where we are. Our biggest expense in the organization is going to be maintenance on the trucks, maintenance on the building, and insurance and equipment. Those are going to be our 4 big categories for us every year. You can scroll down a little further. This is the rest of the fire trucks. Scroll up a little bit. Thanks, we'll stop it right there, thanks. So some additional expenses are recruitment and retention expenses, supplies for the station, training supplies, uniform for members, utilities for us is always a big one, and then the totals down there. So if you look at the net income in the back, on the very bottom there, we actually were ahead by $3,200, which is actually rare for us. I'm impressed to see that number, but that's kind of where we are. If you scroll down a little further. So basically, the reason we're here tonight is we want to talk about rebuilding our southeastern fire station. The station was built in 1954. It was built, like many of our fire stations, it was built in phases. So they built the first building, then they added on, and then we got bigger trucks, so they added on to the front of it, and then they added more bays on, and they just kept, adding on. The problem is the current layout of the station and the functionality of the station just doesn't meet our needs right now, and especially in the future. When they built fire stations, like back in the 50s and 60s, the fire trucks were a lot smaller. And now fire trucks are bigger because we carry more equipment, we bring more personnel, we have more water on the trucks than we did back in the 50s and 60s. And that's why we're really looking towards rebuilding that fire station. We have significant issues there. We have a roof that leaks. We have a basement that, even though we have some pumps, the basement floods pretty much every time we get a big storm, like this past storm. My members are up there pumping the basement out. We don't really store anything in there anymore because we know it floods, but it's one of those things we've kind of kicked the can down the road on that. But we're to the point now, and especially with the new truck coming, that we really need to build a modern substation out there at the southeastern property. And that would be the first thing that we want to consider doing, starting that process in 2024. Now, we don't have any pricing, we don't have any plans or anything like that. We're just simply letting you know this is something that we're working on, starting the process on. So that's why we're here tonight, just to fill you in on where we are with the organization, where our response is with the organization, where some of our financials are, and our goals to start that process. Any questions?
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to thank all the members that were listed on the page and really thank them for being there for the community, that we really appreciate that. So please pass that on. Okay. So I think that was a good report. Laura, do you have any question? Or do you have any questions?
I don't have questions specifically on the report. I don't know if we want to go into our other conversations or just on the report.
Fire company related, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
no, I mean for the budget overall. We're just talking about the fire station. I mean,
Right now, we're talking about the fire company.
yes, so I understand, I mean, I do understand that it makes sense that Southeastern would be our priority to look at. Seems we have a giant pumper truck coming in a couple years. So I don't know how long the process would take to get our building in order out there, so we're ready for it. But I don't think this year would be too soon to start working on that.
We did put a building committee together at a meeting the other night to start facilitating this process, just to start pulling numbers together and see where we're at. We're kicking around a bunch of ideas to help facilitate it, fund it, but we're still gonna need some help. And it's part of the bigger plan that was presented at the end of last year. It's just, this station has to get done because of the new truck that's coming, won't fit in the firehouse.
Right.
And we just couldn't build a truck to fit in the firehouse.
Yeah, I understand. I've been at Southeastern. I know what it's like to maneuver through the building there.
Yeah, there's maybe like a foot of clearance between the back of the truck and the back wall of the station. And maybe like 2 inches between the top of the truck and the roof. I mean, I get scared backing it in. Like, it's tight. So, I mean, there's just no way around it.
Okay, is that Jason?
No, I really don't have anything to add to this. I obviously appreciate all you guys have done and continue to do for the township. I know, these rainstorms that you're dealing with, really were difficult, and it seems like we're having a lot of those, and we appreciate all your efforts in attending to those emergencies that come up, as well as the day-to-day accidents and responses that you have to attend to, both within the township and also out on I-78. You're all volunteers, and we appreciate the time that you're putting into all this. I'm very familiar with the capital plan. I participated in some of your fire services meetings last year. We put together a report which you shared with council, I think it was in September, for long-term vision. And I hope that those who are currently on council have the fortitude to see it through. And not just see it through, but see it through in a timely manner. And don't overlook the importance of all this. It's important for the community to have good public safety, and it's also important to have a vision for the future and to know where public services like yours is going. So I appreciate all that. The one question I do have, I guess, is with regard to Southeastern. What you're proposing, is it a rebuild of the station, or is it some modifications that will simply allow for a larger truck to be housed there in the interim, with the goal of having the overall centralized fire station with the satellites, like we had talked about at CYCO, Steel City, and perhaps out at Southeastern, depending on how things, how call volumes may change?
Right, so our thought is to put like a 3-bay station out at Southeastern with a lounge, which would be like a kitchen, refrigerator.
So you're talking about knocking down the existing and building a new one?
Right, so we would take down a social hall, have the new fire station built, and then when that's done, we would move everything into the new fire station, and then we would demolish the old fire station.
If I recall, we had our discussions. The idea was more to have a centralized fire station in the vicinity of Pope Valley Road, because that seems to be the geographic center of the township. And as the population in the township have developed since 1800s or early 1900s, and all these stations were built. And then to have satellites at CYCO as well as Steel City, because of their distance from the central station. And then also the possibility of keeping Southeastern as it was, or perhaps for going Southeastern, depending on call volumes and how the Pope Valley location would service it. This seems to be a whole new concept where there's going to be a new station built more immediate to this other plan. I'm not reconciling that.
Right, so I think in the plan it actually shows Southeastern still staying there. And yes, you're right, we did talk about the possibility of maybe not doing anything with that station, but this truck that's coming is for that station. So we don't have much choice. I don't know what we could do to get it to fit. The building's like 35 feet deep.
That's why my question was, are you talking about just doing an expansion of an existing bay to facilitate the single truck and the need that you have in the short term with the idea? It sounds to me like you're hoping to get a new station built out there, which the discussions we had previously were that station, it wasn't clear whether that station was necessarily going to be online in the mid to long term.
Right, but if you look at the call volume, it warrants it staying there. And with the future growth, that's the last frontier of the township as far as growth, which was discussed in the meetings also. So it's just, we don't have the funds to obviously put in a new station. We don't even, or a central station. We don't even have property yet. You know, we're working on some numbers here for this station. You know, it might come in at 800,000, maybe it comes in more, maybe it comes in less, we're not sure. We're not looking to spend $2-3 million on a firehouse there.
Okay.
But if we can do it for the right price and make it function for us, we got to start somewhere. And like was discussed in that capital plan, whatever design it comes up with for this station would also be for the next station, whether it's here or at the Sewigo lot.
So one of the things we had talked about was if, you know, getting this centralized station online, and that it would be an asset that's titled and deeded to the township, with the expectation that at a certain point fire services are going to become a paid service by the township, just like police service and everything else. So what you're proposing here, how does that relate to what we were talking about in terms of ownership? I mean, obviously, Lower Saucon Fire Rescue owns the property. There's going to be an ask to fund the construction of the building with taxpayer money. How do you envision that?
Well, we're looking to possibly subdivide off the property that's there. We own approximately 15 acres. We don't need the whole 15 acres.
Right.
You know, the part of that and grants. You know, we're looking to see what grants are out there. So we're not coming to the council to ask for the full amount of money. You know, we're putting in. And as far as ownership of the fire stations and properties, would be up to the council if we could come to an agreement. And
So when you threw that $800 to $1 million price at me, I know that's just, you know, you're spitballing.
right.
Madam President, can I be recognized at some point?
So when you're talking about that figure, that's a figure that's inclusive of state grant money, other funds that you may get to construct this, right?
Well, I mean, it possibly could be the whole cost of
Right, assuming
construction.
you don't get any other grant money or anything else, right?
Right.
Well, just one last question for you. This fire truck that's coming in, it's what, 4 years out?
Yes, yeah.
All right, so we have
Approximately.
4 years to design, plan, fund, construct this, right?
Correct.
So that $800,000 or $1 million or whatever price tag, which we don't know what the price tag is.
Correct.
We don't know what other monies are going to come in. We've got 4 years. Even if the township had to put the entire bill, that's $250,000 a year, right?
Mhm.
Kathy, how much do we bring in fire services tax annually?
Currently, it's around 330.
All right. And I'm not suggesting that, you know, there aren't other fire services needs, that would, you know. Okay, you answered my questions, thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
Thanks for what you do.
Sure, thanks.
Victoria?
Thank you. Question, what was the total cost of the pumper truck that we just authorized purchase of?
You have that number, Mark?
$1,394,000.
certain amount that we had to pay at some point, like some kind of chassis that was due?
The council, when they authorized the purchase of the 2028 fire truck, instructed the township staff to let the Glick know, who's the salesman, that we would take the discount of $20,000, which is for the chassis cost, and we pay that 90 days prior to the inspection of the truck.
And what is the chassis cost?
Roughly $680,000.
And the township authorized 100% purchase as far as the allocation between fire company and township, right?
Correct.
Okay, and and maybe this is a question for our controller, the slide that I looked at, the fire fund was helpful for me in thinking about fire. It talks about the fire truck down payment, radios and simulator, that it says 705. Is that related to the ladder truck?
That would be if we put a down payment. When we were talking about the budget, we didn't know if there was going to be a deposit required.
Oh, okay.
Next year, due to there not being a deposit and being to the truck being out till 4 years, the expense that is planned for that line item would be the payment for the fourth payment of the ladder truck at $134,000.
About that, yeah. Okay. And we have 2 more payments on the fire truck, the ladder truck, I should say.
Yes, we did 3 of 5 in 23, so yes, there's 24 and 25 yet in payments.
Okay. So the fire tax revenue currently is at 332,000?
Yes, approximately correct.
Okay. And the pumper truck came at 1.3, which is greater than what we're projecting to have left in our fire fund. Even if you accounted for the not having to pay the 705.
Yes, but the expense is 4 years off.
Right.
So we'll make
We'll make
1.2 million between now and the time the truck is.
in 4 years, we'll make 1.2 million
Yep.
on the current fire tax.
Yep.
Okay. Couple of questions for the fire company. Your total fundraising, how is your fundraising looking right now?
Well, we do a mailer every year. We send it to all the residents in the township. Our return rate's around 20-21%. The marketing company we use for that actually tells us that's a pretty good number. That equates usually about 85 to maybe 90,000 a year in fundraising from there. Other than that, the rest of the funds we get is basically through our social hall rentals, our club, and we do a car show, and that's pretty much it. And once in a while, we get a donation, like here or there. But that's basically it. There's not a lot of fundraising. And the reason there's not a lot of fundraising, you'll see like other fire companies, you know, they'll do like potluck dinners and breakfasts and stuff like that. The reason we don't really do that stuff is because we run almost 900 calls a year. So we actually run more calls as a volunteer company than some fire companies that actually have paid staffing 24/7. So, you know, we just don't have the time to do that kind of stuff because we run a lot of fire calls. Chief will tell you, we're busy.
Training and
Yeah, we're
we gotta
busy.
take an account for training every Monday night, and then extra meetings and whatnot, and then, you know, you go to firefighter 1 class, it's 190 hours. So, you know, that's 2 nights a week and 1 day on the weekend. So that's a lot of time for somebody to give up away from their family. So, you know, we're trying to shy away from making hoagies and stuff because one, you know, we're gonna run ourselves in the ground to make hoagies to pay for a $1.5 million fire truck.
It's a lot of hoagies.
So your current budget as it stands, you allocate that money to operating expenses?
Yes.
Is that where all that money goes at this point in
Every
time?
cent we make goes to fire company operation expenses, yep.
Okay, so you're not at this time able to use your fundraising streams to put money into a capital fund for a large
No.
purchase of a truck or a
No.
building?
No, and in reality, we typically operate every year either break even or we always operate in a deficit. It depends on the year, it depends on, you know, a lot of factors. Did we get grants or not? Did we get financial help from the township? Did we have large expenses on apparatus? Did we have maintenance costs? There's a lot of expenses that we have to put through every year, and a lot of that changes. I can tell you, 10 years ago when we were buying turnout gear for our members, it was $2,400 for a jacket and pants for us to go into a fire. That's now $5,000. So we've been really strategic with what we need to get done. We use grants that we can keep ourselves upgraded. We've been very successful with that. But at the end of the day, there's just not enough, you know, money without dipping into our savings, pretty much in how that works. And that savings account is slowly getting drawn down, you know, over and over and over. There's just no way around it. If we were a 400-year call company, it would be different, you know, but we're not. We're, you know, 868. We're probably the second busiest call in Northampton, or second busiest company in Northampton County. And that says a lot. That really does.
Okay, I really appreciate everything that the fire guys do. It is a lot. I appreciate the presentation. I certainly have concerns that we seem to be drawing down our fire fund at a greater rate than what we would be able to replenish it with at our current fire tax rate, especially if we're considering major purchases of more fire trucks and buildings in whatever fashion they may be, whether it's Southeastern or someplace else. I don't see right now with what we have expected to come and with the expenses that we have enough to cover something to help with a building. And just so I'm clear, we have the title to this pumper truck that's coming in 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, we want it, yeah.
So it's really our responsibility to find a place for it to live. And right now, the place that it's supposed to live is Southeastern, is that right?
Correct.
So you know, from my perspective, I see that we have not only the pumper truck expense that we're taking care of, but also dealing with where to house it, a place for it to live in the next 4 years. So I appreciate everything that you all do. And thank you for serving us and getting all of the accreditations and everything that you do. That's all I have.
I'd like to say that I'm a little disappointed that you only get 20-some% back from your fundraising. I think that, I know you don't like to promote, you need to be promoted more. I mean, people need to know what you guys do, that you're volunteers and that their house and lives depend on that. And I don't know if there's somebody out in the audience that's a good writer that would like to publicize what they do, and we could put it in newsletters, we could put it in.
We could put it on, when you send it out, we could like our Facebook page.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean,
Tell people to
I
keep
just
an
think
eye
that,
out for-
you know, I know you put out stuff, you know what I mean? But there are people that are moving in here from the cities that have no clue that you're volunteer. And that's bugged me for 36 years.
We run into that just about every call, it seems.
Yeah, yeah. That's a problem. I mean, I don't know what else to do.
Right, well, I think that you need to be promoted more, and hopefully that'll help increase that number, the percentage. So thank you so much for your presentation. And with that, we're going to move on to, get back to our budget.
Thank you.
Discussion, yes, thank you for coming. I know back in December, I voted no to the budget because of the slashing, and I don't know what other word to use. So What I'd like to do is make a motion to approve the 2024 budget, and just so everybody knows that it will be open to the public for discussion after our motion is made and seconded. So I'd like to approve the 2024 budget at, keeping it at the 5.14 millage rate that it was with the proposed budget that was given to us in September, October, when you gave it to us. And raise the fire tax 0.9 mils, because we can only do that by, I can only increase it 25%. So that would be the magic number, if I'm correct.
Raise it 2.9 mils?
No, what did I say? No. The
You said
total,
raise it.
the total millage would be 5.14,
Yep,
and the fire tax would be 0.9,
okay.
because we're only allowed to raise it 25% because of the law. And that would leave the general fund at 4.24.
When you say keeping at 5.14, what are you referring to? Because the budget that was approved by council in December of 2023 was not at 5.14. Kathy, what was the
I was gonna
millage
say
at?
to
Hold on,
amend.
hold on. Kathy, what
I
was
wasn't
it?
finished speaking. And my motion was to include, and that would amend the December 6th, 2023 budget. So that would answer your question.
You didn't answer my question, so I'll ask it again. Kathy, what was the millage rate that was approved by council in December 2023?
It was 4.39.75 for fire and 3.64 for general.
All right, so Priscilla, what you're proposing is increasing the real estate tax 0.75 mils and raising the fire tax 0.9 mils. Is that what you're doing?
Bringing the budget back to having it a livable budget, to have our expenditures, to help the fire company out. And that's my motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second it, but I think, at least my understanding of what you said is that when we first saw this budget in October, the proposed budget by the former administration was to have a total millage of 5.14. The budget was based on a millage of 5.14. So all of the approvals by their former administration were again based on 5.14. It wasn't until after the election and in December that there was a new proposal to reduce the millage. And so what you're asking to do is raise it up to where it was at the time that the first budget was proposed back in October. And I think you were raising the fire tax up to 0.9 and the remaining back into the general purpose for a total of 0.75, which was exactly how it was reduced in December. So I do second that.
Okay, and it wasn't the administration, it was council. You didn't say it was approved by the
Oh,
administration.
okay,
so
yes, you're right, Priscilla. So it was council that had done that.
Right.
So I second.
So there's a motion and a second on the floor, and with that, I'm gonna open it up to the public. So do we have a list?
If people wanted to speak, anyone can speak, like you said, but we got,
Right, is this the non-agenda?
just anyone that wanted to speak, we got names so that we know
Okay.
spellings if they.
Okay, so the first name on the list is Russell Sutton. Would you like to,
I thought mine was for non-agenda.
I'm sorry?
It was non.
You were for non-agenda? Okay. Whoever wants to speak on this topic, do you want to just come to the podium? I don't know.
Sure, I want to speak.
Sure.
5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Haven't met you. Welcome aboard. Good luck. Speaking about spaghetti numbers, I remember 2 people here at the previous council meeting, not but a couple of months ago, yelling and screaming about doing numbers and what's all this millage stuff up and down. All right? I would suggest the following. I would like to see when you're going to make proposals, and it was clear what was going on here with this up and down of millage tax, I'd like to see those numbers right up there on the screen, so we don't have to guess and remember who said what when. Now, I'll go to, is it free reign for me to go where I want in terms of talking on the budget?
This is on the budget, yeah, the budget.
Okay, well, that's the other thing, by the way. I looked and asked what the blazes was this new agenda where it's no comment, yet it is some comment, but we don't know what and what on. So let's start with that and then go to this.
Would you like me to answer that question?
No,
Okay.
you can answer it on your time. I'm already a couple of minutes in. All right, so I would suggest the following. When you put out the agenda and you say you're going to put out additional information, the old budget, which was 23, we know you're going to change it. We don't know what. We really don't know what you're talking about when you flash all these numbers up there. And if our new accountant person doesn't have any idea how those numbers came out, well, I took them from the original. Listen, I can take things from here and stick them there and make them look wonderful. I want to see a spreadsheet where they came from and where they are, so when you draw a conclusion and stick it up here in front of, and I'll bet you there's not a person in this room, if I asked them questions, what was shown could give me the exact data. I want to look at it. I got this notice of this meeting we sent out at 4:15 on Friday. I got it Monday morning saying we're going to have a budget meeting and there's something about some comment star. It doesn't say what, when, or where. Please listen to me over here, Laura. This is really important. This was your beef when you said you couldn't do the numbers in your head. Well, guess what? That spreadsheet would help a mile if we really knew where Mrs. Hill's numbers were coming from, okay? And I'd like to see that going forward. No more of this mystical, I got them here and I got them there. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying she did it wrong. I want to see it because I do take my time and go over. And these guys that work roughly 24 days, 8-hour days, to give up their time to do all this stuff, absolutely they deserve it. But to me, that was a good way just to up the taxes. I'd like to see the numbers. When you do comparisons between the old budget and the new budget, I want to see 2 columns so I can say, oh, they're going up here and going down there. When you say money's being transferred and it's got a big negative, it's got a negative sign for tens of thousands of dollars, and it's only being moved, it's income, it's only being moved from here to here, it's not a loss. You're moving it from one account to the other. It's not a loss. That's a big mistake. Jeez, another minute to go. Did the council discuss this, by the way, and you can answer later on, I'd be appreciative. Did you guys discuss that, all of you together? Or did you, a few of you, because you've had since November the 7th when the election was over? I find it really hard to believe we, the public, have not seen a one word about this budget or any details about what you want to change. And here we are, just like the library 4 years ago. I want you to approve this, council. Except that council said, no, we haven't seen it. If I understood right, one of the council members just saw some of the things that were shown here tonight, and all the rest of you have. How does that work? Well, you can answer that amongst yourselves. That's wrong. And not only that, the public, hasn't seen even that brochure that condensed all this stuff. Nothing. And here it is. You just voted on it. You're going to make it so. I think it's criminal. I mean, really. This is the new transparency? I don't think so. And I hope you all discussed it. And by the way, I do have one question, Mark. I really didn't hear what you said about the lawsuits. There were 2 of them. And I'd like to have some more information. I don't know, I just heard how and 2 lawsuits, so I don't know what that was said there. Now,
So what I was doing was describing what was discussed in executive session
Yes.
amongst the board.
Yes.
And in executive session, you can discuss a number of things, including legal issues, property purchase. So I described the property purchase. Your question was about the litigation?
That's correct, Judge
Yeah, so the
Talbot's
two
rule on
litigations
that,
we
right?
discussed both relate to the library.
Right.
There's two pending litigations.
Mhm.
One is on appeal in Commonwealth Court,
Mhm.
and one is pending in front of the Court of Common Pleas. And we just discussed issues and strategy related to that.
Okay, can you give an update where they sit?
There are proceedings scheduled in the Court of Common Pleas. Right, well, let me start with Commonwealth Court. That's pending. I believe there's motions pending with the court. There was a recent amendment by the library or the state to one of the motions that there's going to be a response to at the end of the month. And then on the other one, on the right to know case that's pending in the Court of Common Pleas, there is trial dates that are coming up as well as motion dates.
And where do we sit?
I don't, what do you mean? Where do we-
Right, you're part of it, we're part of it?
I'm
This
sorry?
township is part of the,
Correct. Township is part of the cases.
right, where do we sit? We're gonna go forward with it?
Well, that's what I'm discussing with council in executive
Okay.
session.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you weren't here at the reorganization meeting, but we did pass a new resolution, 31-2024, which allows a 5-minute talk period. And it also allows that on each agenda item, we open it up for public comment. So we don't do I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
I just got it, I was hoping it was posted. As a matter of fact, I asked if I could get a copy of that. That'd be another thing, if you change a resolution, it'd be very helpful if you would post those so we can
It
see.
is posted.
It is
If you go to the website, it's
I
posted.
Just found that out.
Yes, and it's been there since the next day. The staff was very quick in getting it up there. So that would have been January 4th, or no, January 3rd. And as I read in the beginning of the meeting, which I believe you were here for, I read you out of our administrative code that a newly elected council can amend the budget. So we voted at the last meeting to have this on the agenda, have a special meeting for tonight. And the budget was attached, and we all looked at it. We didn't know, anybody could make a motion to come up with an amount with the tax millage rate. And my proposal would be the 5.14 millage total, and the general would be the 4.24, and the fire tax would be raised to 0.9. I have voted no to every budget that has lowered the fire tax. The fire tax should never have been decreased. We've lost, how much money, Kathy? Take that $300,000 since,
There's probably, from where we were at a mill, it was around 127,000
a year.
when they lowered it to 0.75.
Right, and I was just totally upset over that. And I have voted no to all the budgets. I want to restore that tonight, and that's what my motion is all about.
I think I also want to indicate that I had not seen Ms. Hill's presentation.
I didn't see the
So,
fire company.
We are sitting here just like you, seeing the presentation for the first time. I think it would be nice if we had, so everybody could see, the millage that was proposed in October was a total of 5.14. That's what you have paid in 2023. So I am not proposing that we raise taxes in any way, shape, or form. What we are doing is aligning the millage, at least I see the motion, that we are aligning the millage to reflect how the former administration prepared their budget, because they prepared a budget based on 5.14.
I just
So,
like to see those columns that show.
and I think that's great.
Well, I don't think it's great, I think it's mandatory.
No, and I think maybe I could, so this is, just for some clarity, this is the beginning of the process under the township code and under the second class township code, which are very similar to each other. this is the beginning of the process. Once the proposed amendment, if it passes and there's a direction to staff to prepare the documents, they'll be available for review for at least 10 days. So you'll have an opportunity to be able to review.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you vote for it, and you vote for it, and she votes for it, it will pass.
It's,
Majority rules.
I agree.
this is the beginning of the process. What they're voting on tonight is to authorize staff to prepare it so that it can be reviewed by the public.
If it passes.
You'll have an opportunity.
So,
There will be another vote to actually pass it.
good, okay. So you're not voting to pass it, you're voting to make it known and prepare the numbers.
To authorize the preparation of a revision to the budget.
So staff will prepare, if the motion passes, staff will prepare and update the budget and have a budget on the agenda for the 17th, which is next Wednesday, with the new numbers. At that time, staff, if council decides to pass the budget, then we would advertise it for 10 days. So that would be the,
Right, I'm
I
trying.
call it the,
So it should show on your agenda, there will be a motion to whatever, with the associated data, so people can look at it and understand.
Correct.
That's what I don't think that's hard, it's just another page on a billion-dollar web. Thank you.
And that was part of my statement in the beginning, reading right out of our administrative code, what we're doing tonight.
Priscilla, I actually read that tonight.
The administrative code? It's a
Yeah,
good
it's in
document.
code.
Thank you.
I probably spend as much time as
Next.
most people.
Great.
Next.
Okay, next.
Hi, John Blair, resident, Lower Saucon Township.
Hi, John.
I'll keep this pretty quick, but I have two questions that just sort of jumped out at me. Well, third is, it is very hard to read the screen. I understand you have it online, but when you're going through the fire budgets and so forth, I can't see them, and I have glasses, but nonetheless. Two questions I have, in no particular order. When Jason brought up about Cherrywood, and he had $1 million budget to pay, and it came in at $400,000. That's a $600,000 difference. And the board, everybody just sort of like went by it. And we're talking about, what's our total, like, that's a big number, $600,000. And everybody just sort of, oh, and you're passing a budget and you're missing, what's our total budget?
I have
So
that
the projected ending balance was $6.3 million. So that's
$6.3 million.
$620,000.
So 10% of the budget, everybody just went, oh, don't worry about it. Oh, we just forgot about it. That's 10% of the budget. You got Cherrywood up there, I saw it on the map, that one I did see, $1 million. They were in bigger letters, $1 million. And he's saying, and she's saying that we bid it for $380,000. And everybody just went, oh, let it go. And you're gonna pass a budget, and you missed 10% that you didn't even stop and go, let's correct it. So I'm confused. How do we rely upon the board, every one of you,
You shouldn't.
This was from the budget that the prior
Okay, let him
council
have
put
his
not-
together?
I'm not
Let him have his
picking
side
prior or present. I'm picking, I am picking, I'm picking the present board. This is the board that's gonna vote on it. Can't do anything with the prior, that's long gone. But we just went 10% of the budget, like, no big deal, like, where the hell does that eraser go? $600,000. And you didn't discuss it further. Like, let's redo the budget, and wait till next week and we'll redo it. No problem with your budget, but geez, oh whiz, to walk away from 10% of it and act like. So that upset me. The other thing that upset me is, I'm not picking on anybody, I'm just simply saying, how do you buy a 5-year, 6-year made fire engine and you don't have a building to put it in? Wouldn't somebody have thought, if we're gonna spend $1.7 million for a fire engine, we need a $250,000 bump out at Southeastern to park it in? If I came home with a Suburban, my wife said, where are you gonna park it? We only have a single car garage, she'd be pretty irritated with me. How do you buy a fire engine, you don't know where it's going? That should have been done when the fire engine was done. If the fire engine was 1.5 million, you budget 1.7 million because we have to have 250,000 for a bay to put the fire engine in. And now we're dealing with it now? It doesn't look good. I'm not picking the prior or the past. It's embarrassing. You should have known where you're going to put the fire engine. And you don't need to spend $1 million. Put a $150,000 addition, poke it in there until you find out your overall fire department plan. Thank you.
Well, you weren't here for when we had the discussion on the fire truck. Had you been here, you would have known that it's gonna take at least 4 years.
We watch it on YouTube.
4 years, and during that time period, we were gonna address where it was gonna sit. So that.
I would have maybe allocated a credit or something because somewhere.
It's in the fire tax, it's
Okay.
in there, it's in there.
Okay.
Okay, and the other issue you brought up, you just left me,
Cherrywood.
Cherrywood. That was addressed at the last year in December, I believe the bids came in.
December 20th.
December 20th, at a special meeting called by council, and they came in. We had no idea what they were gonna come in at. The budget for 2024 was already passed in December, on December 2nd, December 6th, which I voted no to, okay? So I didn't do that. A previous council did that, voted to that. Didn't even know what that number was gonna be, but it's in the 2024 budget.
But
So
you're asking.
tonight, we're not going through item by line item. Okay, we're going the total number of the millage. Okay, as we go into the year, we have a good manager, we have a good director of, always forget your title, director of treasurer, finance director, I'm sorry, Kathy. And they will work together and with our controller to try to bring everything down and if we.
I don't disagree that everybody's trying to do a good job, but when you have a $600,000 number, maybe you'll make a decision on your vote whether we need to add taxes to our revenue. You might say, you know what? We didn't realize it's not going to be $1 million, it's only going to be $400,000. We don't need to add any taxes currently. Maybe next year's a different story.
Right.
I'm just speaking about today.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who wants to go next? I have some names on here, I didn't know if you want to talk non-agenda. Okay.
Hi, Margaret Zegeline,
Put the microphone down to you, thank you.
resident of Lower Saucon Township. I just want to say that I think that there are many ways to raise funds, and I wasn't aware of some things before tonight about the fundraising efforts that were already taking place at the fire department. And I think if more residents were aware of what fundraising efforts were being done, that more people would contribute and pitch in. I do think it's the communication issue, and that's usually the issue. We have what, 10 or 12,000 residents? No, more than
11,000 in
that.
our township.
How many now?
11.
11.
Yeah.
If 11,000 people contribute $10, that's $110,000. You know, it's not. We're not talking about large numbers, and so I just want to say that if we take every avenue of social, I'm losing my train of thought. The whole point is we need to communicate it to the public, and then everybody will know what options they have to help. Because now, not everybody can be a firefighter, but there are so many ways that we can help. So, going forward, I just wanted to say, I'm definitely going to be doing things myself that I can do. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Margie. And who wants to go next?
Hello. Mark Ozimek, Rignan Road. So plain and simple, what you're putting forth here tonight is to restore what the last council did when they reduced the village. Correct, right?
Pretty much.
No more, no less. Whatever way you divide up the money, that's between wherever it needs to be. So our tax base is going to be back where it was last year.
With more money going to the fire
Correct.
company.
Actually, the last 3 years, it's been at that same total.
So theoretically, there is no increase in tax.
No, there is not.
Okay.
Reality or theory.
Thanks for coming out,
That's not a
Mr.
correct statement, sir, because what they're proposing is they're restoring the tax back to where the original proposed tax was, never approved by council, and then they're also increasing another tax. So they're not telling you the truth.
That's okay, but I don't buy your opinion.
I'm not offering opinions, sir.
Let's jump on to this. Number 2. Fireman? Fire chief?
You have to address the chair, please.
As far as the new fire engine, okay? What fire station is the most centrally located fire station in the township now?
Last Mark. Which one?
From the call volume, the firehouse here gets the most calls. Southeastern gets the second most calls. From the study that we did, Hope Valley Road area is what we would consider the center of the township. So the closest to that is Lightsville.
Okay. Now, will that new fire truck fit in the Lightsville station?
It is my understanding that it will.
Okay. So, if things are supposedly tight on money, until Southeastern can be revamped, because I know the fire station, I run the election polls over there for the last couple of years. I see how tight the fire engines are. There is no room over there, and I agree with them. If the roof leaks and the basement leaks, it needs to be repaired, because leaking only causes more damage. Would it be possible to swap one fire truck here to put the new one over at Lightsville? And in the meantime, they can address the building issue instead of trying to pay for the new fire truck and at the same time, well, which would really be at the same time, address the issues with the fire company, with the firehouse.
You on the fire company?
Huh?
Are you on the fire company? Maybe you should be, because that's a bright idea.
Oh my God, what failure.
First of all, we have a new fire, anyone interrupt? I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
We have a new fire company liaisons, Victoria and Laura are now on the Fire Services Committee, and they can bring those ideas back to the next meeting and talk about them.
I just want to add my comments about the fire service tax and where that stood. My concern is overall that we seem to have a lot of capital improvements that we are going to need, and we aren't funding our fire tax appropriately to account for those needs. So I don't know if the fire company is able to answer the question, but I don't want to put them on the spot either. But I think that the question is a very good one. And it is something that we can bring to the fire company and see about moving fire trucks around and whether that's whether that's appropriate given the type of fire calls and the location of the people. There's a lot of factors, but I don't want to speak for the fire company on that, and I don't want to put them on the spot unless they feel like they can answer.
I'll come up and answer.
He wants to answer.
Ty Johnson, Fire Chief. So, I mean, everything that was said here, I mean, we've thought of already. We have a tanker out of Lightsville. That truck is bigger than the one that's being purchased, so it won't fit out of Southeastern. The only truck in our fleet that will fit in the Southeastern Firehouse, besides the 2 trucks that are stationed out there now, is an engine that sits down here at Saucon. This past summer, our tanker was out of service. It had a cracked tank. The engine out of Southeastern also had to go out for service. That left no engine out at Southeastern. We had to move the engine out of Saucon out to Southeastern. That truck barely fit. The guys had to open the garage door, walk around the front of the truck to get into the driver's seat. Now, I understand Mr. Blair's concern also. We can't build fire trucks like we used to build fire trucks. The tanker that sits out of Southeastern is 32 feet long. The new tanker is 34 and change. I think 34.6 somewhere, give or take a few inches. It was part of the fire committee's discussion about buying a tanker. So it was brought to us that we should spec a tanker, and that's what we did. Could we put it at Lightsville? Absolutely. But then we won't have a tanker out at Southeastern where we have 1 hydrant in that whole 10 square miles. So, you know, we play devil's advocate on ourselves as far as protection of the community. You know, we spend a lot of our time and effort into public service in the township. So if anybody has ideas, you're more than welcome to give them to us instead of berate us in front of everybody. But, you know, this is where we're at now. You know, I'm not sure where all the funding's gonna come from. That's why we're here. We were asked to put a presentation together, and that's what we did. So, you know.
Well, let's go back to Mr. Blair's comments about ordering the fire truck. I think it's a valid point. I mean, you asked us to approve a fire truck. Did you know before you came before us for this fire truck that it wouldn't fit in the space that you intended it? And if you didn't, did you measure and consider that?
We did measure the firehouse.
So you knew then before you came before this council and you didn't tell us that it wasn't going to fit in the space?
I'm pretty sure it was discussed. And we were asked to spec a truck, and that's what we did. And I tried to get a truck to fit in that firehouse. They can't do it anymore. So if we were at a bay, then we're at a bay.
Did you tell us then that it was going to cost us an additional hundreds of thousands of dollars, $1 million for the new firehouse to be built to accommodate the new toy?
Well, it's not a toy.
Fire truck. My bad, the fire.
Yeah. You sat in some of those meetings too, Jason. It was discussed to replace.
That was discussed, I'll tell you that.
Well, you weren't at every meeting, but.
I just want to say that I really appreciate our firemen, and I don't want to. You spend so many hours answering fire calls for free, and I personally am sorry that you've been put on the spot. I didn't want to make you be put on the spot for sure, and I would respectfully request that we not interrogate you.
I'm just asking questions. I think they're valid questions.
Yeah. I don't have an honest answer for you. I mean, it was discussed, and like I said, we were asked to put a spec together, and that's what we did. Is there ways that we could make it work? Maybe. We'd have to configure some things, but that station was on the report about replacing. I don't have the report right in front of me, it's out in my truck, but either way, we need to start moving forward and replacing firehouses. They're obsolete, you know, they have mold in them, they leak. You know, and part of the problem is the guys before us concentrated on having the right fire apparatus for the township and the calls that are run in the township. And we're outgrowing those firehouses, and, you know, the money was put into life safety equipment and not the stations. So, you know, we're in a bad spot here.
Thank you very, very, very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Ty.
What's your name?
John?
Listen, I didn't say anything. I said that the B rate, the fire company.
Mark, you can't
Or,
hear me.
or,
I can't hear you.
or, I didn't say anything like to make you guys look bad. I just came up with an idea. It was a thought. And it was a thought because I'd like to see you get Southeastern fixed up. Because it needs fixed up. I know that. I'm in the building twice a year. So, as far as when you guys were here, when the fire company was here asking for the fire truck, I think some of those things were addressed. And just like normal, I'm not gonna say it because then, you know, I'll start an argument. But, you know, the guy that did do a lot of the fire company meetings isn't here. He ain't at this meeting, he ain't at the last meeting. And as far as I'm concerned, when he misses a third one, he should be booted. Permanently. Am I correct in saying that there's a total of basically $9 million in the fund?
In which fund?
Any fund, together. Added together, separately, I don't care how you look at it.
We have open space money, we have, go ahead Kathy, you're the,
We have, as of right now, we have 14 million in general and 14 million in
I
open.
can't
and
hear you.
We have 14 million in general and 14 million in open space and 5 to 6, around 5 million in our capital funds.
That's great. That's absolutely great. And as far as giving money back to people, I don't think you should. I don't know, this is for Mark Freed, the attorney. Is the township capable legally to take some of that money and put it in some sort of investment account so that it brings back some kind of return, like my retirement account?
I'm sure that the township has money in interest-bearing accounts of different kinds.
Okay,
They're
all right.
they're all interest bearing, and the second-class township code provides for any municipality to have a operational reserve fund for the event of revenue shortfalls in the future and to stabilize the tax base of the community.
Good, good. So over time, you already ordered a fire truck, you take care of the fire truck, and for a temporary situation, if fire trucks need to be moved around until Southeastern is repaired, then so be it. If you get a call and you have to run that fire truck from here to the other side of town, and you need it, then that's what you gotta do. But I'm not sitting up here berating the fire company, because they deserve whatever they need to solve township problems when there's an issue.
Right,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Mark. Okay, next, Russ, Michael is,
Yeah, I wasn't aware of how much the fire, it's Russ Sutton from Saucon Avenue, and I didn't realize how much their fire apparatus, actually their uniforms cost, they almost doubled. And you can anticipate everything going up, not going down. So the fire tax should increase appropriately because that's what saves our lives. Not ball fields, not parks. And the other councils spend a lot of money on ball fields and parks, and they don't save people's lives. And I know about this because I was an advanced life instructor for over 30 years. I give these guys credit. They're volunteers. They do it all on their own. And they work very hard for what they do. And I noticed even on my street, I called them, there was a 2-minute time lapse from the time I called them to the time you arrived, and I was very impressed with that. That never happened before. So my hats are off to you. You really did a great job. And our volunteers do a great job. Without our volunteers, we're sunk. And this is a matter of life and death. It's not a matter of parks or recreation or things that are not necessary. This is a necessary thing that we need for our own well-being. So I really think we should, if we're not raising it that much, how many mils are we raising the fire tax?
Oh, it went from 0.75 proposed in my motion to 0.9.
0.9. And so the individual person, approximately, what kind of cost would that entail? It's nominal. It's nominal. It's like a meal out. And you're not willing to give this to the fire company to let them protect our lives? I think we should set our priorities straight. This is a life and death situation that we actually need control of, and we should support our fire company fully.
Thank you.
Chief Johnson, just ask you a question, I'll put you on the spot again. But prior council purchased a ladder truck for the fire services. Prior council helped to facilitate the consolidation of all the fire departments into one, including Steel City Fire Company. Prior council authorized the purchase of the new pumper truck. Prior council authorized the payment for air packs, improvements to 4 of the fire stations. What else did we provide? Because there's a suggestion here that we're somehow shortchanging fire services, and we've actually authorized millions of dollars toward fire services, including apparatus, grant writing, and other things, right?
Yes, the other thing was radios.
Radios.
We upgraded, we got a grant for radios. The total cost was about $580,000.
We help subsidize that.
Correct.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to clarify for people who may not have been here for all these meetings to see all the things that we have done. Because the suggestion is that somehow we're shortchanging fire services and putting lives in jeopardy, which was never ever the case, was it?
And I'd just like to go on the record and say
Hold on,
that.
I want to hear his
Excuse
answer.
me?
I didn't hear his answer. I asked him a question. I'd like to hear his answer before you interrupt him.
No, we're
You're
not here.
interrupting the chair, by the way.
Go ahead, Chief.
And we're not here saying that the council never backed us.
We're the ones who actually came up with the idea for the central fire station, met, put a plan together, and actually presented it to council to get that ball rolling, right?
Correct.
Thank you. All right, that's all.
Yeah, and we're just
I'm not
asked to
looking
get
for
a
credit.
report, and, you know, we're looking for continued backing. That's what we're here for.
Have a life.
So,
I'm sorry.
so,
Thank you again. Monica?
I think we've just seen a wonderful demonstration of everybody wanting to support the fire department. And I think so much is, well, I did this and we're doing this and whatever. We have to change the tenure of the conversation at these meetings. And we have to keep the time so that when we come to hear the agenda and the important things, that they get addressed. And to get petty about the fire trucks when no one seemed to address a $4 million or what, $3 million ballpark. I think it is just awful that we are talking pennies for the fires and hundreds of thousands of dollars for a limited use ball field. So I just would like to go on record saying thank you for bringing the mills to a realistic planned position that they were in October of last year, when it was not frivolously put in to just cut at any cost, to put in the word cut. And I just hope and pray we find the way to work together and to truly praise the fine work of the councils past, long past, immediate past, and where we're going in the future, and really change the tone of conversation.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay, so back to council. We have a motion on the floor. Would there be any other discussion?
I do. I have a discussion about it. May I be recognized?
Sure.
So what you're proposing here after finding of $620,000 in savings, you're using fire services as a red herring to justify this. And one other point that I would make is that Steel City really did not have adequate fire coverage until the merger took place and Lower Saucon Fire Rescue took over. So we appreciate that because the response times dropped precipitously and the services have been a lot better in Steel City. So thank you for that. Back to my point though about what you're proposing here. What you're proposing is increasing the taxes a total of 0.9 mils. And one of the residents suggested that what we're being asked to provide is pennies. This is not pennies that's being provided. So to put some perspective on this, Mark Hudson.
Just a little bit.
What's that?
They're proposing 0.75.
0.75.
Yeah.
0.75, my understanding is they're proposing 0.75 for the general and 0.15 for the fire services for a total of 0.9. Is that correct?
I didn't understand it that way. I understood that the fire was going to go up 0.15.
Right, and the general is going to go from 4.39 to 5.14. Right?
No.
Total of both combined.
It's a total of 0.75, 0.5 in general.
Mark, why don't you
purpose.
tell me what your understanding is so that I have an understanding of this?
So, let's go back. Currently, the fire tax is 0.75.
Right.
It's my understanding that they are requesting to raise that 0.15, so it will be 0.9.
Right.
And that's
The
within the
general-
25%.
That was looking at some numbers.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
The general fund, when we passed the budget in December, the general fund millage was 3.64, and they're going to raise that 0.6 to bring that to 4.24 mils.
And Mark, what was the general purpose mill proposed in the budget in October? $4.39. So 4.39 was proposed in October, it went down to 3.64,
All right, so I'm not
and it's
done.
up to
Priscilla, may I still have the floor? If I
4.19.
may remove from having the floor, Priscilla? Priscilla, may I have the floor? Thank you. All right, thank you. So what's being proposed here is increasing the taxes 0.75. And if I understand correctly, Mark, 1 mil represents $100 for every $100,000 of property value. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So I recall from our prior discussions when we were talking about the savings to taxpayers from the new host municipal agreement with the landfill. The average home value in Lower Saucon Township was $500,000. So if the average home value in Lower Saucon Township is $500,000, and granted there are some that are worth more and some that are worth less, much less, some worth much more. The average home value in Lower Saucon Township is $500,000, and you multiply that by 0.75 mil, that comes out to $350. So every resident, on average, is going to be asked to fork over an extra $350 when the township itself is sitting on more than $9 million in reserves that are available for funding anything to do with the township. Not talking about open space money, we're not talking about fire service money, it's just $9 million plus of reserves, and they want to take more of your money. That's what they want to do. So their first order of business as new council is to raise your taxes.
No,
Not
this is
raise
a
taxes,
reorganization
restore taxes.
meeting where we did a lot. So, okay, Laura, did you have anything else to comment on?
I'm going to say we're not raising taxes. The combined total will still be what we've had for the past 3 full years. It's the same total millage. It's just we're dividing it up differently. We're moving a little bit over more to the fire tax as much as we can, which was only 25%. So that's like what we're limited to. And then the other one, the general purpose tax millage, comes down a little, but combined it's 5.14 mils, which is the same rate it's been for the last 3 years. lot of word twisting going on up here.
Thank you. I appreciate all of the discussion. I appreciate all the comments. I think there were some very good ones. And I want to say that I think it's appropriate to keep our millage where it was because everybody knows everything costs more money. Fire trucks cost more money, fire buildings cost more money, but everything in the township costs more money. And to be in a position where we're balancing our budget by using reserves, which is what we did, I don't think is fiscally responsible. I think we should live within our budget. We should tax accordingly so that we can pay for our bills without drawing down our reserves, which are meant for emergency purposes or for large capital improvements or one-time costs. They're not meant to balance a budget like this, especially when we had a proposal not to reduce the millage in October. So I think that the motion is great. I seconded the motion, and that's where I stand, and I appreciate everybody's input.
Right, and I appreciate everybody's comments, and with that, I'm going to ask for a roll call, please.
Ms. Alcock-Badera, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Ray, how do you vote?
Yes?
Mr. Banonis, how do you vote?
Absolutely not.
Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
Absolutely, yes.
Motion passes.
And now, do we need another motion to direct the staff to,
We'll prepare everything and get ready for the 17th.
for the 17th? So next meeting will be January 17th. And have the record reflect that at, what time is it? 8:35, Mr. Banonis has left the meeting.
Can I have a seat?
So January 17th, this will be on. You want to explain that process again for everybody?
So this is council directing staff how to prepare the budget for the next meeting where they will tentatively approve the budget. Then it will be advertised for 10 days, and then the final approval will be at the February 7th. So it'll be advertised for more than 10 days.
Okay, and this will be online for people to look at then
Yes.
also?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think we did it, so thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kathy and Mark, and Lynn, for doing what you did in preparation for tonight. So I guess then we're moving on to miscellaneous items. We have the township manager. Mark, do you have a report?
We still have Christmas tree collection going on this weekend. So if anyone still has a Christmas tree that they're looking to get rid of, recycle, you can drop it off at the Yard Waste Center on Polk Valley Road this Saturday from 9 to 1. That's it.
Okay. Laura?
I guess I can give a short little report. I did attend Lower Saucon Township Historical Society meeting last night. So one of the items that was discussed there that they made a motion on was regarding the sign that goes out in front of the Let's Franklin Schoolhouse. So like the other signs that kind of disappeared over the years, because I don't know, it rotted away or
You're
something.
talking about those green signs with their name on it, that sign?
Yeah, like the regular park sign. So they don't have a park sign currently. I don't remember, it's been gone for quite a while apparently, so shows how much I pay attention when I drive by there. I just know it's the Let's Franklin School, but the sign's gone. So they are interested in having a new sign. They have wording that they would like on it. They would like to have it acknowledged that it's a National Historic Registered Site. But they don't need the thing where you can slide in the lettering.
They do have their bronze plaque there, though.
Yeah, they do, but you have to actually get out of your car and walk up and look for it. So they'd like a sign. They don't need the thing where you put the lettering in because nobody was ever available to do that part. So I just wanted to mention that. I know Karen was going to send in a letter about that tomorrow. So wherever that goes in our, whatever you do, sign hunting.
Okay, Victoria?
I did attend the EAC, but I would, maybe, Laura, do you have any update for EAC? You don't have to give it if you don't
I
want to.
don't, you can give an update if you want, I don't recall.
I just attended, I'm not the liaison, I just attended and I appreciated that everybody had a lot of thoughtful input, and I look forward to seeing what Laura and the EAC does. And I look forward to that. Otherwise, I think the other one thing I wanted to ask about was there's I guess a gate between two communities. Priscilla, do you know what I'm talking about, the gate?
The historic thing, the historic heritage center, the date?
No, like there's a gate in between, it's off of Meadows.
Yes, Stover, Stover, is it Stover Road? Stover.
It's between two
I
communities.
sent you that email, Mark. The gate.
You know what we're talking about, the gate?
I didn't see it,
Right, you don't have to talk about it.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if you could look into that. There's a gate, and I apologize to the public for not remembering the name of the street, but there's two communities, and a lot of the people within the communities like to go between the communities to walk their dogs and do things, but there's a security gate that's there in place, which prevents people from traversing from one community to the other. And some residents have asked that we look into whether there's any need to have the gate there any longer for security purposes or whatever. So we're hopeful we get the street name, but just to ask Mark to look into that and see what we can do. What are the pros, what are the cons, what do the police say, what do the fire guys say? That's it. Thank you.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, I guess I have, I'd just like to announce that the next Thursday on January 18th, the landfill committee meeting will meet, and the time has been changed to 2 p.m., correct?
What time?
What?
2 p.m. for the landfill committee.
Do we need a motion to do that? I'll make a motion, just have it on the table, to change the landfill committee meeting to 2 p.m., the quarterly meetings. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Wait, I can't make a motion. Okay, I know, but the new sunshine law thing says you, okay.
Well, you could extend
Okay.
but I don't think. we-
Okay,
the
so we'll
statute is-
direct the manager to do that. Thank you, Mark. 2 o'clock on. Okay, and I want to thank you for YouTubing the EAC meeting the other night. I think it was a success. I watched it from comfort of my home.
Maybe that's something to mention about
What's that?
the streaming actually is happening of the meetings.
We're starting.
I forgot about that. So EAC was broadcast on the YouTube, and I guess the planning will be as too, if we have a planning
Correct.
meeting.
Yep, that's the plan.
Okay, I also want to talk about the rain event from the other day. And I know Mark took videos of the waterfalls on the Narrows. And I'd like to talk about that at the landfill committee meeting on next Thursday. I'm also hearing a lot of complaints, seeing a lot of complaints on Facebook from Steel City residents about the increased water issues, the berms that have been redirecting water with the newly macadam streets, and flooded basements for first time ever. What is the cause? So I'd like to, you could look into that. There's, I know I can think of 2 off the top of my head. And I guess that's all I have. So the solicitor's office?
Just briefly, we received 2 appeals to the land development decision that was rendered by council in December related to the Bethlehem landfill, one from residents and one from settlers.
Okay, thank you. We have no junior council member.
Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, I didn't write that down. For those of you that love to eat out, Ellertown Lower Saucon Chamber is having their restaurant week starting Sunday through Saturday. And I hope that, we're going to be posting the restaurants that are on the...
Yeah, it's up, I just couldn't find it.
Okay, all right. So check the township's pages, Facebook page, and support our local restaurants. And, just thank them for being part of the chamber. I'm on the chamber board, and I really would appreciate that. So I guess that's it for reports. Moving on, we have public comment, non-agenda items, 5-minute time limit. Is there anyone here that would like to? I saw Russ's hand first. Russ?
You were talking about washouts occurring in Steel City. Well, a lot has to do with this. They logged, supposedly selective logging.
Can you let me pass it down from the
Sure, there's two sides, and this is not all of it. It's actually almost 100 acres, if you add it all together.
Okay, you can keep, okay.
Speak in microphone, Russell.
And I've asked just about everybody, it's basically state forestry. The township doesn't have control, the county doesn't have control. I know I spoke to Mark to find out information about it. And I actually went to the Forest Management and Timber Harvesting in Pennsylvania, and I found some information here. Diameter limited cutting is generally a destructive practice, and this is from the Forest Management and Timber Harvesting in Pennsylvania, and this is from the government, from the state government. It takes the best trees, the most valuable species, it leads to progressive deterioration of the forest quality, affecting tree diversity and quality. Such cutting reduces future management options. You should retain selected large trees that provide full color and interesting patterns. But the big thing is the trees act as living filters and reduce surface runoff much more than land does. Logging normally disturbs less than 10% of the forest soil. You're talking about acres up here. This runs behind all of our houses. We've received no notification that they were harvested. I know this is private property, but the same token is how we found out about it was the crashing in our backyards and being woken up in the morning by trees being felled. They went in with machines and ripped them out by the roots with caterpillar treads, which compacts the soil, and they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to use chainsaws and cables to pull them out when they do selective harvesting. Basically, they literally destroyed the whole area, and it goes from all the way from Quincy all the way down to Riverside Drive, the whole mountain. So one owns 30 acres, one owns 20 acres, and the other one owns 40 acres. So that's a huge amount of land. And not only that, there's nothing there now in some spots, so there's nothing to prevent rain runoff. The slope is sometimes greater than 45% there. You're not supposed to do that. Supposedly, all timber harvesting operations in Pennsylvania must have a plan to control erosion and sediment. They're not supposed to disturb more than 25 or more acres at a time. All earth disturbance activities require development and implement of a written erosion and sediment plan. The erosion and sediment plan shall be prepared by a person trained and experienced in erosion and sediment control methods and techniques applicable to the size and scope of the project being designed. It's supposed to protect existing drainage features and vegetation, minimize soil compaction, utilize other measures of controls that prevent or minimize the generation of increased stormwater runoff. The erosion and sediment plan must contain drawings and narratives and consider such factors as topological features, soils, volumes, and rate of runoff. And also maintenance programs for BMPs, waste disposal, geological formations, and thermal impacts to surface waters. And the erosion and sediment plan must be available at the project site during all phases of earth disturbance activity. There are no postings up there whatsoever. And I went through that whole area and took them pictures. I went through that whole area. And also, you have to deal with the potential damage of these logging trucks going over these roads because they exceed the weight limit. These are huge trees. They're 3-4 feet in diameter, 100 feet long, and you know, they're just destroying the whole mountain. And we're trying to save the mountain up by the dump. And in the meantime, the mountain right behind our houses is being destroyed. So I hope the council can find out more information from the state. What permits do they got? Why isn't there a permit up there? Did they get a permit? Where's the plan for about the runoff and the drainage? There's nothing there. I went around the whole area. There's nothing posted anywhere. And it's just a total big mess. And it's all coming down in our backyards. Thank you. And I just wish someone could find, I spoke to Robert Friedman. I'm not getting answers from anybody. So I'd like to know what permission they had and where are these permits and why aren't they being posted?
Do we have any of that in the town office? We have the permits? I know I saw some of they didn't, I never saw logging plans. That's public information. You can stop by the township and look through it.
Yeah. So they did submit a plan?
Yeah.
For soil erosion and all that?
County Conservation was out there several times,
Yeah.
So they think they're following the plan?
they were good with it.
I thought, just at EAC, I remember there was, I think that the board made a motion for recommendation to council, and maybe, that just was yesterday or the day before, so it was regarding, looking at our timbering ordinance. I think we had a timbering ordinance, and then there was a lawsuit, and the state came down with some
We have.
guidelines.
We had
what the state told us what we needed to
We
put
had
in our
everything.
ordinance. And
Oh,
that's what it is.
so you've checked, like you've had.
That was years ago when it first, the acre
Okay.
thing came out with the trees, a crop and all that stuff.
Okay, I knew there was like
Right.
some, I've just heard that, the state regulations preempted our more restrictive
Right.
ordinance. So I wanted to just see what we could do with our
Yes.
ordinance if we could. That's
It's
all.
already done. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, sir, would you like to state your name for the record?
Bob Blasco, and I'm a resident of Lower Saucon Township. I reside at 2510 Reddington Road. After witnessing what I have here on council tonight and some of the things that were brought up,
You gotta speak into the mic, I can't hear you. Sorry.
after witnessing what has gone on at council this evening, I have a lot that I would like to say to a particular member of council who has left. However, were he still here, I still would not say it. Because as a woman, a lady expressed earlier, the tenure in these meetings has to change. Anyone who's attended these meetings when I've been here or watched on YouTube knows that I can get down to nitty-gritty. And you want to punch and throw punches, I can take one as well as give one. I don't want to go there. There are a lot of things that have been brought up this evening that were misrepresented as far as I'm concerned. Misquoted. One of those when Jason said that you wanted to raise taxes 0.9. No, you never said that. You said you wanted to raise the fire tax from 0.75 to 0.9. There's a difference. We all know that the reason those taxes were lowered was a political ploy. If it were not, it would have been spoken of before the election. It would have been used as a campaign tool. It is a time for change. I sincerely think that those on council, most of you, a majority of you anyway, are interested in the welfare of Lower Saucon Township and its citizens. I think that the previous council that held the majority felt that they were interested, in the best for Lower Saucon and its citizens. However, there are different ways to get there, different ways to do that. Enough of that. We have pictures. My wife and I went out the day after the storm, and we took pictures. We can get into those pictures. She's got them on her camera. But just down from Ringhopper Road on Apple Butter Road, right where right now they have the concrete, look like highway barriers up there where they're dumping now, presently at the landfill. The water, and I was up at 1:30 that morning, it had stopped raining at that point. So here we are at 11:30, 10 hours later, and there was a stream in one spot just downhill on Apple Butter from Ringhopper, a literal stream, and you can actually see the blocks in the background of the picture where they are currently dumping at the landfill. When I had called Matt Viapond up, well, we have retention ponds. Well, Matt, I said, look, I can put a 5-gallon bucket in the middle of my 3.5 acres. Doesn't mean I'm catching all the rain and keeping it from running off my property. So yes, it does exist. It's still going on. From there, that goes into the east branch of the Saucon, then into the Saucon about half-mile downstream, and then into the Lehigh about another half-mile downstream, and 5 or 6 miles downstream into the Delaware. So it's still going on. We still have to report it. We did call. We are continuing to call. It's not enough, people, and I need to remind everybody, it's not enough to put it on the website. You have to call the number for DEP and register that complaint. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, for reminding everybody to do that. Okay, anyone else? Go ahead.
Just before this next speaker, Mr. Blasco, can you send those pictures to the manager, just so we have them for the landfill committee meeting next week?
Good idea.
Dave Boulan. And by the way, I remember talking to Brian and Mark about 4 years ago. I have a swale in my backyard. If you want to run a boat or sail during the storm from here, let's say from that wall to that wall, that's how wide the swale is, maybe a foot deep. And guess what? Keeps going, goes down the road, washes things out. We talked about it, okay? So yeah, heavy-duty rains are really a problem. I guess the Bethlehem Land sewage facility probably dumped a lot of their sewage into the river, as we found out, right? So we know about that. So that's a real problem. The thing is to follow up on it. And I'm surprised that the previous speaker, when he had a problem with all that logging, didn't go to the Environmental Council and say, hey, what do I do? Because they should have said DEP, right? That's those people, best management practices, all that vocabulary comes right on out. They're there to protect the property. I don't know, when you denude all that property, take all those trees, as he said, he's quite right, I know that. Bottom line is, what's going to happen with all that silt right into the river? Who's going to do something about that? We all knew, I should say I didn't know about it, but I clearly know, hey, we have an up and down landscape in this town. You're either at the bottom or you're at the top and you're gonna get it. So I would suggest that maybe some of these calls be redirected to our township people that handle those areas and get hold of the DPA. And boy, let's work on them. That's important if you're gonna be on committees. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Laura?
Here comes troublemaker. That's my mission in life.
Just state your name for the record, please.
Mark Ozimek, Lower Saucon resident. And if you watched the EAC meeting the other night, you heard me. And I'm about to start again. Apparently there's enough money in funding to fix Southeastern Fire Company. If you don't want to take it from there, and you want to try and help raise some money for the township, I think the township should take over the landfill. I saw Priscilla put out the notice about writing to DEP. Well, you know what? DEP takes too long. Hanover Engineering is just Hanover Engineering. Mark Freed could look into this, but I say Lower Saucon takes over the dump. And by that, I mean, make a limit. If there's 10 calls in Steel City and it smells bad, or like when I go up my street, and I'm pretty far away, and people can smell it on 78 and complain, you either start, Lower Saucon itself starts finding the dump, money-wise. And if they don't listen, you shut them down. Here's your punishment. You're closed for a day. You're closed for a week. And you hit them in the pocketbook. Because there's no reason that they shouldn't be up there covering up their garbage daily like they're supposed to do. And apparently the DEP doesn't threaten them enough. And Hanover Engineering, they're no threat at all. It's up to the township, because we're the people that put up with it. We're the people that gotta live with it. It's our creeks, it's our streams, it's our rivers, it's our property, and that's the way it is. So that's what one of the main things you should be working on. And it'll generate more money for the township. I mean, they get their host fees, whatever, leave that alone. Whatever they do with it, whatever you do with it, you do with it. But you create a separate thing. And if they can't take care of their dump, you make them pay for it. I mean, just look at what you guys, not you guys, whoever came up with the idea. Just look at what the township does to people when they want to build new houses. You can't get a residential permit because there ain't 10 feet worth of blacktop in the end of your driveway. I mean, what the hell has that got to do with living in a perfectly brand new house? And then the township wants to keep taking money out of people's pockets to do it. You have the ability, I believe, that you could go to the dump and say, here's the new rules in Lower Saucon Township. You're going to start abiding by them. I'm like the neighborhood prick. And maybe there's part of Lower Saucon Township that should start doing that. Because I'll take Banonis' seat or I'll take Carocci's seat. Because, like I told you, in 2 years, if my health is as good as it is now, and I feel up to it, I'm going to battle that right out of his seat. Help the township, help yourselves, and make the dump take care of itself. You got the video.
May I respond to your comment? Okay, I'd like to say that in 1998, when the city of Bethlehem sold the landfill to a private entity, the first private entity that bought it, we had to renegotiate the host agreement. And if you can find a copy of that 1998 agreement, it has about 20 whereases, and those whereases took out, they got fined 25%, and if they got a notice of violation. There was all kinds of things that in the old agreement that the majority of council back then, because I voted no to the agreement, had in there as protection clauses for the township. And unfortunately, they went out the window. And then this latest host agreement is even more atrocious. So, which I did not vote for either. So,
Who made the last host agreement?
I have no idea.
Council?
Not me.
Right, well,
They approved it.
What did you say, Lori?
The council had approved it.
Well, we approved it, but
It's
I didn't.
debatable who actually wrote
It was
it.
probably handed to the solicitor,
Okay.
not you.
Other than the dump, off the subject of the dump, didn't the last council start a federal lawsuit with the state for something for the library? Didn't they try to? Huh?
That's the OCL case, Office of Commonwealth Libraries. The township is currently pursuing, I think, litigation. We are suing the Office of Commonwealth Libraries. So, yeah.
Is that out the window now since Treadwell's
We
gone?
can't really discuss litigation right now. We're in the middle, there's too many complications.
All right, well, find a way to go back after the host agreement, whatever you gotta do, and start making the dump pay for the damage they're doing.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to go next? Dave?
David Willard, I have a suggestion for the next meeting. I think we'll address many of the comments that were made and provide some clarity before you vote on the budget. I think a simple matrix which shows the property tax millage rate proposed in the original budget, the fire tax and the total tax from September, what it was changed to in December, and what you're proposing now, plus, as Laura indicated, going back several years, to show whether there's a friggin' tax increase or not, would provide clarity for everyone in the room. So I do agree that that's a missing element from tonight that would have saved us a lot of confusing discussion.
Well, it was hard because individually we didn't know what we were, you know what I'm saying?
It's fine. I'm making a suggestion for the next meeting, along with what's in the resolution, level of civility, and atmosphere of reasoned expression of ideas. Thank you, Council.
We really appreciate it. Thank you, Dave. Okay, anyone else?
Can you just maybe direct Kathy and the new controller to prepare something like that? That would be illustrative, and maybe test it out, sit in the room and see if you can read it, just to check, just so, because I want to make sure everybody understands it.
We'll work on it.
Yep. Okay, anybody else? Okay, so if that's the end of public comment on agenda items, is there a motion for adjournment?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Victoria, I'll second. And roll call, please.
Ms. Ray, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Top Cordero, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion passes. Have a nice night.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.